I just want to say about some of the things that I wanted to cover were covered by Sheikh Jamal before me, but just generally about the Islamic intellectual heritage. I think the first thing, there is a modern concept or an idea that I've noticed that some people have, that Islam is somehow a simple religion. That it's presented as this simplistic, what Guy Eaton in The Destiny of Man calls the Boy Scout religion. And I think that that's a great disservice to the tradition of Islam, because the Quran actually directs the message to what are called ulul albab, the people of innermost core. Lub is depth. Lub is the thing that is the innermost thing of a fruit. The lub is the innermost. And so the people who the Quran really is speaking to are the people that have depth, that have innermost core. Now there is a hadith that says, هَلَكَ الْمُتَنَطِّعُونَ, that the people of Tanatta' are destroyed. That hadith is sometimes translated as those who delve too deeply into matters get destroyed, which is really a disservice to that hadith, because the hadith is actually talking about the rabbinical deviation, which is to go into great detail about matters to the point where you get lost in the detail and then can't see the big picture. And those people get destroyed. And those are the people that will go to such an extreme about every little picky detail. And they get destroyed by that tendency. And so the Prophet ﷺ was warning about that, and he said, إِيَّاكُمْ الْغُلُو فِي الدِّينِ, beware of extremities in this teaching. Also in the hadith in Al-Bukhari, لَنْ يَشَدَّ الدِّينَ أَحَدٌ إِلَّا غَلَبًا. No one goes to that extreme, and he's not talking about depth or profundity of understanding. He's talking about becoming picky in the details, or attempting to encompass the whole of the Islamic teaching, because the teaching cannot be encompassed by any one individual. And that's why we are an ummah. We are a body of believers, and the body, if you look at it, is not the same thing. Even though its structural foundation is based on cells. The cells make up different organs, different elements, different aspects. So the body has bones, and the ummah has bones. It has a structural foundation, which is the Islamic hukm, or the governance. It's the system of justice that is established by the people of justice. And then it has the heart, which is the heart of Islam, is the people that are maintaining the life of Islam, both its intellectual and spiritual. They're pushing the blood to the far reaches of the body. And the lifeblood of this deen is ilm, and by ilm, and I'm going to go into that inshallah, by knowledge. We don't understand it as information. The Muslims have never understood ilm as information, because if knowledge was information, what that means is that the Orientalist is an alim. You see, the one who studies like at McGill or Harvard University Islam and learns all of the different aspects of Islam, and can come and give a lecture in a masjid and give you tafsir of Quran and quote Al-Qurtubi and Ibn Al-Arabi and Al-Qadi Abu Bakr and Tabari and all of the great mufassirin, and yubahit, he'll just make you amazed. And yet, what is at the essence? Disease. fi qulubihim marad. He has a disease in his heart, and his disease is inad. It's obstinacy, that he hasn't submitted to the message. So the alim is never the one who has the most information. And the idea here is in the words of Imam Malik radiallahu anhu, when he said, لَيْسَ الْعِلْمِ كَثْرَةُ الرِّوَايَاتِ. Knowledge is not having a lot of riwayat, of a lot of narrations. وَلَكِنَّ الْعِلْمَ نُورٌ قَذَفَهُ اللَّهُ فِي قَلْبِ الْمُؤْمِنِ. But true knowledge is a light that Allah places in the heart of the believer. And that light is the light that is the result of the intellectual aspect of knowledge, literally beginning to merge with the flesh and blood of the human being. It's what Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali calls mubasharatul ilm qalb al-mu'min. When the knowledge literally begins to have a penetration into the heart of the mu'min and begins to permeate the life blood of the mu'min. And so this knowledge is literally inundating the human being, and he becomes yamshi bin nur. He walks with this light. And this really is the essence of Islamic knowledge. Nurun ala nur. It is light upon light. In other words, the informational aspect, the analytical aspect, the intellectual aspect is nur. But then ala nur, it's on another light. It's light upon light. And that can be looked at also like Fakhruddin al-Razi, rahimahullah, in his great tafsir, which has been maligned in this present age. They say, فِيهِ كُلُّ شَيْءٍ إِلَّا تَفْسِير. In it is everything but tafsir. A great untruth. One of the superb intellectual contributions to this ummah is that book, despite the fact that there are aspects in it, like any book, that need to be watched carefully and avoided because of some of the influences that he was affected by through Hellenistic thought and ideas. But this has never been a reason to reject the knowledge of a people by certain cultural influences that exist at a time. The Muslims have never done that to their scholars. We have always taken and benefited from people. If you look at the great rhetorician of Islam is Imam Zamakhshari. He's accepted by the ulama as being really the pinnacle of understanding in balagha. Despite that fact, his tafsir has some dangerous ideas in it that have been rejected for centuries by the Muslims because he was of the Mu'tazilite school. He was a Mu'tazili, and for that reason, I've never met an alim of any worth that didn't have his book in their library. And yet they will say, you have to watch out what he says. Surah Al-Takwir, for instance, in the chapter of Takwir, just don't pay any attention to his i'tizal. But that doesn't mean you don't benefit from the man's knowledge. And this is the difference. Now, I'll tell you interestingly, in this modern period, and this is part of the fascism or the terrorism, intellectual terrorism of certain elements, there are certain governmental elements that have bought up publishing houses in the Muslim world, and they have actually altered text and taken out sections. And this is called khiyanatul naql. It's treachery in the narration. And the Muslims have never done that. They've left everything in the books that the alim put in there. And I've seen this with my own eyes, because I had a copy of a book which is the tafsir of Imam al-Sawi al-Jalalain, and there was a section that was whited out. And I saw an edition when I was in West Africa that was published in the 1940s in Egypt, where the section wasn't whitened out. And it happened to talk about a certain group of Muslims that the Imam wasn't pleased with, and this certain group of Muslims published the later edition of that book and they whited out the section. Now in the most recent edition, which I have seen, they didn't even bother, at least whiting it out, I wonder what was there before. Now because of computers, you can just delete. They've moved it up, so there's no whiteout anymore. So this is a danger, if you think about it. What happens to the books of Islam, especially computerization. It's actually quite a frightening thing, because with computerization, things can be added to books, and computers are a double-edged sword. Like everything else in life, it has dual edge, and one of the problems with this sword is there's really not a handle. In other words, it's just the blade. So it's very dangerous, this internet thing, for instance. Somebody put out a whole thing about me that just made up completely, like a biography. And I was in England, and in fact, Sheikh Jamal was there. He had left, he had to go somewhere else, but they introduced me, and this man started reading this biography of somebody I've never even heard of, except he had the same name as me. And I said, well, what's that? He said, your biography, I got it off the internet. I said, A'udhu Billah, I don't even know that person. Throw that away. And now it's in the data sphere, right? You can't even pull it back if you wanted to. So, this is a danger of this whole thing where people don't write their names, which is another part of our intellectual tradition. Scholars always put their names on books, and now there's books published where they don't even put their name on it. So you don't even know. It'll say something like, مَجْمُوعَةٌ مِنَ الْعُلَمَاءِ, like a group of ulama. Well, who are they? I want to know who they are. I saw one thing, a fatwa that was put out from South Africa by Majlis al-Ulama. And it doesn't say who they are. And it was it was amazing, because it was a fatwa based on the Hanafi madhab that even got the madhab wrong. They were quoting about Jum'ah had to be in Arabic. And Abu Hanifa radiallahu anhu is one of the imams that says it doesn't have to be. And you can look even in the Sharh al-Maraqi al-Falah, it'll say, وَتَصِحَّ الْخُطْبَةُ وَلَوْ بِالْفَارِسِيَّةِ. I mean, this is Hanafi madhab. The khutbah is valid even if it's in Persian, which was the dominant language of the Ajam at that time where Abu Hanifa radiallahu anhu was. So that's the dominant position, is his madhab. But they put it out like, no, it's haram to give a khutbah in Arabic, which in the Maliki fiqh, yeah, you can't give a khutbah in Arabic. Even if there's no Arabs, you pray dhuhr, according to Imam Malik, also according to Ahmad. But Imam Shafi'i and Imam Abu Hanifa permit the khutbah in Arabic. And so here's an example of a group that didn't even get their madhab right, which makes it even more problematic. And then put out this fatwa, and then people say, oh, haram to give khutbah in Arabic. They read this thing, it says Majlis al-Ulama. It's from the council of the ulama. Ya akhi, min Majlis al-Ulama. You know, طيب, who's this majlis? I mean, first of all, من قال أنا عالم فقد جهل. Whoever says I'm an alim is ignorant. That's a qaida. In fact, one time I said to this sheikh, one of my teachers from Mauritania, we were talking about something, and he said, well, it's like us. And he was referring to himself, he said, ulama akhir az-zaman, the scholars of the end of time. And that was a kind of self-deprecating statement. Well, I mentioned that to another alim, and he said, subhanallah, adda'a al-ilm fi akhir az-zaman? He's even claiming to be an alim from the end of time. So this was something that was known, like in the Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that they're the mufsidun. Imam Al-Qurtubi says, why? لِأَنَّهُمْ أَدَّعَ الْإِصْلَاحِ. Because they claimed islah. And anyone who says they're a muslih is not muslih. And if you look at the ayahs in the Quran, there's always make us from amongst them. In other words, it's not saying I'm a mu'min, no, it's saying make us amongst them. That's a statement of humility. Put us in their company, even though we're unworthy of it. And this is the difference. You see, it's a very different.